Welcome. Welcome to Sacred Journey Interfaith Seminary, next installment in our series of Sacred Conversations. I'm Reverend Lori Cardona. I'm here with Reverend Grace Telesco. We are deans of the seminary, and we have started this series with the intention of continuing our love of education and our love of our spiritual paths. As interfaith ministers, we've spent many years learning many religions. And as deans of students, we've spent many years teaching many religions. However, in our own personal practices, we have a complementary mystics path. Mine is A Course in Miracles. Reverend Grace Telesco is the Vedantic philosophy. Now, it's interesting because there are people who say that A Course in Miracles is a Western Vedanta. And when she and I speak about our understanding of the paths that we've chosen, we find that there's a lot of similarities, and we thought we would talk about them today. And so welcome. It's good to be together having these discussions, and especially this one for two paths that are so near and dear to us. So I want to start by saying hello and welcome to my beloved partner at Sacred Journey Interfaith Seminary, Reverend Dr. Grace Telesco. Would you please honor us with an opening prayer and get us started, and anything else you'd like to say?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity and this sacred space for us to have a beautiful, sacred, open dialogue. I thought maybe we could start with the Gayatri mantra, and then I'd say it in the Sanskrit. Then I would explain what it means as the prayer. Om Bhu Bhuvaswa Tatsafatur Varenyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. And what this means is we meditate on the divine light of the Supreme Being who pervades the earth, the heavens, and beyond. And may that divine light illuminate our intellect and guide us on the right path and guide us in this discussion. And so in that, I would ask you the first question, which is both A Course in Miracles and the Vedanta philosophy suggest that this material world, the physical world, is just an illusion. How do you think each of these traditions define illusion? I know you'll speak on A Course in Miracles, and then I'll have an opportunity to put my 2 cents in about the Vedanta philosophy. So the world as an illusion. What's the implication for that in how we live and how we relate to others?
Yeah, it's a great question, because the word illusion in and of itself kind of can throw people off, because we're so attached to our lives. We're attached to our bodies and to other bodies and to our circumstances. And so it's hard to go through anything, whether it's joyful or not, and to say, oh, well, that's just an illusion. So it's not about trivializing or dismissing our earth experience. It's about recognizing that that's not the completion of our soul's experience. Our earth experience is what's happening in time and space right now, in this body, in this time. And our soul's experience is beyond this time and space. And so if we just focus on what is happening right now from our ego's perspective, from judgment and fear and perception of the earthbound experience, then we can kind of get locked into a concept that that's all there is. Because whatever's happening to me, it's so important, and I'm so special because I'm having this experience, as opposed to looking at it as, how can I see this as an opportunity for my soul's growth? How can I see it as an soul's alchemy experience? So the illusionary part is when we think this is all there is. And Vedanta and Course in Miracles are the only one who say that. I mean, many mystics paths say it's a dream. It's a dream. It's one portion of our entire soul's journey. And so when we conceptualize illusion as being that place from which we function through our fears, through our egos and our judgments, then we have the opportunity, if we're on the spiritual path, sort of step outside of that and look at it and say, How can I see this differently? How can I see this from my soul's perspective and not just from my ego's perspective?
Yeah. And
How
it's,
does that relate to Vedanta?
well, I'm going to quote Krishna on this. So this is from the Bhagavad Gita. And by the way, just if people who are watching this, maybe they don't have any idea of what Vedanta is, what this philosophy is, it's the mystical path or mystical understanding of the Hindu tradition, but it really is grounded in the Upanishads. So it's not just the Vedas, right? Because the Vedas, well, they hold all of the chants and the prayers and this and that and the traditions and rituals. But the Upanishads, which come at the end of the Vedas, almost like an appendix, if you will, that is rich in the philosophy and in the mysticism. So in the Bhagavad Gita, which also talks about the four yogas, Krishna says to Arjuna, "Oh, my wondrous Maya, how difficult you are to cross." And I love that because even Krishna, who is an avatar, an incarnation of Brahman, of God, right, on earth, like kind of like Jesus, a counterpart would be Jesus. But Krishna, here's Krishna saying, "Look, I know, I get it. It's hard. This is not easy to see this as an illusion because it really feels real. I mean, you're in the movie theater, right? Or you're 3D movie, and you're like, oh, you're like grabbing things are flying at you, and you're trying to grab them because it's so real, but it isn't. But this is a virtual reality ride that we're on, and what that means is that all the things that bother us, and I'm not gonna like just negate people's feelings around grief and loss. When
Right.
someone dies, my father died, your father died, Sheikh Shafayat Muhammad, he in the physical, he's no more, right? But the part that really gets me is when we focus on the material, just like the Buddha said, it's going to disappear. It's going to leave us. Everything on earth has an expiration date. Everything, everything. So you say, oh, that's very depressing. No, actually, if we gain altitude, we can change our attitude and see that all that really matters is the soul essence, the spirit essence. That's all that matters. That's what will remain. That's what always has been and always will be. And that we're made up of the same ingredients as this power greater than us. Brahman is called in the Vedanta philosophy. Holy Spirit, I imagine, in Course in Miracles. But the bottom line is, I love Krishna's line, "Oh, my wondrous Maya," which is illusion, "how difficult you are to cross." It gives me some hope that if Krishna could say that, right? I mean, and even Jesus said it
Yes.
let this cup pass, but not my will, yours. And then ultimately surrenders because Jesus, of course, knows that this isn't all there is.
Right, right. I love the analogy of a virtual reality game. I heard recently of a woman who had gotten one of those, what the ocular, it's like a new thing that well, I guess it's not new, but you put this mask on and you can go, you can climb mountains, you can do all sorts of amazing things. And somebody was telling the story that they gave it to their mom and she put it on and she was like, "Oh no, I'm falling." And she got like really upset and they were like, "Just take the mask off, just take the mask off." And so when she took it off, she was like, "Oh, okay, that wasn't real." And that's sort of what you're saying. We're in this, the illusion is the concept of the virtual reality game, and when we look from a higher perspective, of course, the miracle says, rise above the battlefield. If we can sort of separate ourselves, like the Buddhist concept, thoughts without a thinker, to be the witness, if we can be the witness of what we're going through, then we realize that it's not the ultimate truth of who we are, or really, or any of the players, anybody else who's with us. It's if we can take off that mask for a moment, that virtual reality mask, and just come to this place of peace, and connect with Christ vision, Krishna vision, to be able to see from this higher perspective. And like you say, it's a tough, it's a tall task, and at times it's pretty tough. But having the spiritual practice helps us to sort of step away from the upset or the turmoil of the moment.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
but like before, just real quick,
yeah,
just to say that there are some people that really can't grasp this, right? And it doesn't mean that, oh, we're so wise and that's why we grasp it, because I really don't grasp it either, honestly. I mean, I
right.
try to, this is a great philosophy. Now apply it, then that's a whole nother story. When I get all tied up and upset about something, I can't help it. It feels real, right? But I have to just kind of go back into that place of knowing that all will be well. Why? Because nothing is going to harm me. Nothing can harm me, my soul essence, which I think is the true self. And I think that's the next question that we have.
Right, but first, I want to respond to what you just said because that's why we call it spiritual practice, right? If we didn't have to continue practicing, we'd already have been elevated. We probably wouldn't even have to talk about this. We would
Right.
just sit in a corner and just be happy to look at palm trees and breathe the air, and nothing would affect us.
Yeah.
But it does, and that's I think one time I went on a retreat for 2 weeks, and I just felt like I was in such peace. But then I had to get back into the world, and there was the hustle and the bustle and the noise, and it was like, oh, how do I bring that peace with me? And that's what these paths are about. How do we bring the peace with us? How do we bring our learning? If you do jop in the morning and you're chanting the names and you're praying, and then you go outside and you have an upset, do you go into battle, or do you go, oh, let me bring what I did this morning into this moment, and perhaps I can have a glimpse of what that peace was. A
Yeah.
Course in Miracles, this is this is 985,000 words. But is it saying anything different than any other first or second line, which is the most powerful? It starts out by saying, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. And doesn't that sound like the Hindu prayer that says, lead me from the unreal to the real? That's it.
100%.
That's the whole thing. That's it.
100%.
And then we
Go
spend
ahead.
all the rest of the time trying to understand it, trying to deconstruct everything that contradicts our earthbound experience, from living from fear, living from judgment, to living in peace and forgiveness and compassion and kindness. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say a funny story of when I was in seminary. Um, I I would go into Manhattan. That's where the classes were once a month, and it was a first year seminary class. And Ted, oh geez, I was just going to say Ted Bundy. Like we're already recording this. It's too late, but it isn't. It's the guy. It's the guy. What's his name? Oh my gosh, he's like a big Course in Miracles person and a dean
John
of all
Mundy.
paths.
John Mundy.
John Mundy, not Ted Bundy,
Sounds
right?
like Ted
Okay, so
Bundy.
I was
Mm.
close. Yeah, give me a
Hey, in
pass.
the higher realms, we're all
I'm so
connected.
sorry. No,
We're all
anyway,
connected.
no disrespect meant whatsoever. No, it's just 65-year-old brain. Sorry. So,
Mine's even older.
I went to this class and I listened about, he talked about A Course in Miracles, and it was
Yes.
actually a two-parter. So part one, part two was like 6 hours. And I was so angry on lunch break. I go and I call Chris and I tell Chris, I'm so upset. She said, why? I said, because there, and I had never heard of A Course in Miracles, right?
Right.
Until that moment. And I was like, they just like they stole everything
They,
from the Vedanta and slapped a new label on it and called it A Course in Miracles. This is like a fraud thing. And Chris in her simplicity says, how do you know that, there's not several different folks who are inspired with the truth? Nobody has like a market on it. Nobody has the like this is copyright material kind of thing. In fact, the Vedanta and the Vedas, they don't even have like author's name on it. Like there isn't any. And of course, in
right.
Miracles doesn't have an author's name on it either.
Right. That's correct. And the more you learned and the more I learned as interfaith students, seminarians, and then teachers of interfaith, we started seeing all those correlations. It was like, oh, everything as you were learning might have sounded like Vedanta. the more I look at other things, the more it sounds like A Course in Miracles. I can go to a movie and say, oh, that's Course in Miracles. Look at how they're handling this, their perception of things. Everything starts to show us the interweaving of the ultimate truths of the
Right.
higher realms, you know,
Right.
the mystics' paths. They're all saying the same thing. Different generations, different languages, under different categories. You know, we could say Vedanta, Course in Miracles. We could also say Taoism, Kabbalah, Sufism. You know, it
Exactly.
all starts to sound. You know, we're walking each other home. It all starts to sound like the same path and the same destination, but with different words
Yes,
that we
yes.
use.
One
So
more, one more little tiny drop. One
yeah,
more
yeah,
thing to put a bow
yeah,
on the illusion piece. And we've had a seminarian who was very upset when we would talk this way and bring
yeah,
up the notion of Maya, cosmic illusion, whatever. And but he would say, but this is so real, and I see it, and it's real. And you have to go to really quantum physicists to say, oh, wait, it's true. Just look at a table or a piece of furniture and you say, "Oh, I can't put my hand through that." It's real. It's solid. It's solid material, right? It's matter. But what we know is that when you break it down to the atoms, you could actually go through it. There is space in between. You say, "How can that be?" Well, because time and space is still part of this cosmic illusion. Even gravity. We think we're standing erect right now, but the world is round. And so there are other people who are upside down. I mean, even time, it's 1 o'clock now. That's for us. What about everybody
right,
else in New Zealand or Australia or Antarctica or wherever it might be? So time, space, matter doesn't really matter.
right. Right. And of Course in Miracles says that early on in the lessons about, you know, it's divided up into sections. The first section is a text for contemplation. The second part is a workbook for application. And in that application, it's asking us to look at things, just like you said, look at a table. Do you really know what that is? Why have you decided what its use is? And even if we've all decided it has one use, you think a table's for eating your breakfast. Someone else might think it's for standing on to reach a light bulb. Someone else might say it's where they put the dog for grooming. We can't all decide one thing universally. And of course, does say that universal theology is impossible, but a universal experience is necessary. And that universal experience is when we start moving to a place of understanding how much we really don't know, how much really doesn't matter, and how much our search for this higher way of being is so essential to our spiritual growth and
Yeah.
maybe our emotional maturity
Even,
as
I mean,
well.
like, even to the point of, and we might not ever get to the other questions, it seems, but even to the point of like when you went through something really bad, right? Like horrible. I'm
Yeah,
thinking I have too many to mention, but there's one in particular right now I'm thinking of, and that was an IRS audit, right? It was very painful and ultimately owed them money, and that was painful. For 5 years, that was painful.
sure, yeah,
But I look back now and I can't even really remember too much of that. It's a blur. It happened in a second. And it wasn't. It lasted a whole year. And it was really, really costly emotionally and all. But when I was in it, it was real. But now
right.
it isn't real. It is kind of like a dream.
It's so far past, and there's a line in the Course of Miracles that says, "I don't know what anything is for." I don't know what anything is for. And so whatever is happening, that audit, whatever, we're kicking and screaming going into our experiences, and we rebel against rules and regulations and reprimands that are coming at us. And yet once we're past it, we can see it differently. That's part of the challenge, right? To try and see it differently. Can I see peace? I can see peace instead of this. That's one of the lessons. Should I go into the next question? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. This is another question we came up with. That the idea of the self is central in Vedantic philosophy, and A Course in Miracles speaks about the true self as opposed to the ego. How do these two fundamental works frameworks approach the idea of self-realization or awakening to one's true identity?
Wow. So the ego, and I'm also thinking of, and this is because we're interfaith. So like your main track, if you will, is A Course in Miracles, and mine is Vedanta, but we're also interfaith, and we're interfaith educators. So you can't
Yeah,
help but draw upon all of the rest of the
always.
stuff. So in the
Right.
New Age philosophy, New Thought philosophy, we hear about Eckhart Tolle, and in A New Earth, he talks about like the ego self and how we need to remove this ego self because this ego thinks it is all that it is and a bag of chips. It needs to survive. So when it feels threatened by anything, like the word illusion threatens the ego, because if it ain't real, if this isn't real, then that means that I'm not real. That this ego that I have, this self that I am, Lieutenant Telesco, Dr. Telesco, Reverend Telesco, will the real me stand up? These are all little s selves.
Right.
As Chris would say, the big ass self is the true self. That's the true nature of who I am. That's Atman. And in the Sanskrit, Atman means soul. And, I'm thinking about the Gnostic scripture of Mary Magdalene for a minute. And in the Mary Magdalene gospel, she asks Jesus, where is the soul? Like, where is it? And he says she says, is it the mind? See, it isn't the mind. In the mind is where the ego resides, right? So it isn't that. What is the true self? The true self is that essence of the spirit. So she asks Jesus, well, where is it? Where is it located? Is it the mind? Is it the heart? Is it like the spirit? Like, she doesn't know. And he says it's in the new place, not new NEW, but NOUS, which is in the in between place. So it's sort of in between my mind, my heart, my spirit. It resides somewhere in this new space, in this in between space. And it has always been, and it will always be. That's why the Hindus believe in reincarnation. And so, this isn't my first rodeo, so to speak, right? I've been here a long time, going from embodiment to embodiment to embodiment. And if you get even deeper into the Vedanta, the purpose of your life in this embodiment is not to come back, it's to wake up. Just remember who you really are, the true self, your true nature, Atman, same ingredients as God.
Yeah, I remember the first time we had our first set of students, and we took them in the back of the original seminary location, and we had them all hold hands, and we played that song, Why Have You Come to Earth? And the answer was to love, serve, and remember. Why have you given birth? Why have you come to earth? To love, serve, and remember. And I just remember they all started crying. It was like something was awakened. They did remember. It's like, oh, I am here to serve. I am here to remember why I am here. Why have I given birth? And it's like there's this place where we kind of knew that. Was it before we took breath in a new body? The different philosophy, like African spirituality and different spirituality tell us, we had this agreement in the heavenly realms in another dimension, however you want to think of it. And then it's like, okay, I choose to have these experiences. I come into this life now. I forgot. I have spiritual amnesia because I completely forgot, because now I'm in this little tiny body and I have to start all over again. But
That's because you
something
got the
inside,
shot.
huh?
That's because you got the shot.
The shot, we got some kind of amnesia shot. Is that what
Yeah,
it is?
right before we're
And
born.
so Yeah, and then we're starting to have like this inner knowing. It's like what this nudging. That's why we call it a calling. Those of us who go into
Yes.
ministry. What is that calling? It's something in that side us that we are remembering. We're here to love, serve, remember, but also to rise above this fear, this judgment. I spent a few years rewording some things around when I was doing the live streams for A Course in Miracles. Instead of saying ego, 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 like it's a bad thing, I started saying subconscious programming. We start getting these programs at young age as children, and we start losing our connection to that knowing, to that remembering. There's a great story in Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda, where he talks about being 2 years old and he suddenly had this remembering that he was a yogi, that he was supposed to be a teacher, and he felt the constraints of this little tiny body. And I think sometimes as we get past our childhood, maybe even our teenage years, we become adults and we start taking responsibility for how we're interacting in the world. We also struggle against those subconscious programs. We have all that stuff that we know about now. We have trauma responses, attachment disorders, and so getting on a spiritual path is about deconstructing all of that so that we can go back to the very basic remembering of our true self. And so again, A Course in Miracles, almost 1 million words, taking us over and over into that remembering, 365 lessons every day. I don't know anybody who did it 365 lessons and they say, okay, I'm done. I've been doing it for 30 some years. There's some lessons that are brand new because, oops, I did something that was not my best self. It wasn't my most skillful self. Let me remember how to do it better. But I have to have trust that doing it better is the path to peace.
Yeah.
And the path to feeling as though I'm doing that which helps me to rise higher. I gotta slip this in. You pray harder, rise higher, love steadily, forgive readily. That's what the deconstruction of all these other messages leads us to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't help but think about how we have taken the word woke and made it a bad thing.
Right.
There's this code for whatever, is going on. But that's what our goal is to wake up to our
Yes.
true self, our true
Yes.
nature, because cosmic illusion is fake news. That's
Yeah.
fake. That
That's the fake
isn't
news.
real, right?
Right.
And
Right.
it's hard sometimes for us to see that, but I've been trying to not look at the news. I've been really trying hard not to, but you also don't want to put your head in the sand, be an ostrich, and then before you know it, they're knocking on your door, coming to take you away. I do want to have a little preparation, for that. But I noticed that I'm much more peaceful in my true life versus this fake life, this fake news, this illusion of what's going on. Now, some people might really get upset hearing me say that and say, there's some really terrible things that are going on today. Yes, I know that. Oh, my wondrous Maya, how difficult you are to cross when you're
Yeah.
afraid and scared.
Mm.
Fear is all about the ego dying, is really what it is. I'm afraid of for my identity of who I am, my identity, that because of my identity, something as bad is going to happen. That's fear. But my true identity is the soul. Nothing can happen. It's perfect, unharmed. Nothing can touch it. And I see that a little bit in my application every day because if I'm not looking at the news, I'm not getting disturbed. And I'm walking out on the 5 acres and I'm petting a horse and smelling the horse, and then it's just like, that's all
Mm.
that matters. The true nature of nature, the true nature of self provides peace.
Yeah, and in terms of waking up, this is an alarm clock. But, any path we're on, we can think of it as an alarm clock. It's waking us up. It wakes us up every day to say, let me do the lesson of the day. Let me do my spiritual practice today. before I do anything else, before I watch the news. If I watch the news, where's that going to take my intention of being in peace for the day? And I don't think it's about denying that that stuff is happening out there. It's just that that stuff that's happening out there does not have to change who we are in here. And so, being with the horses, being on the land and finding peace. Imagine if everyone did that. Imagine if the way of peace was everyone's way, then we wouldn't have war. The fact that we have wars, the way we have political divide and social unrest is because we are not unified in making this agreement. It's not the way of this world. Of
Right.
Course in Miracles says God didn't even, this is also very controversial, but it says that God didn't create the world as it is. We did that,
Of
because
course.
war has been going on from the beginning. Divisiveness has been going, the joke is four people start out in the Garden of Eden and they couldn't even get along. It's like there has never been a time in history or in allegory stories
Yes.
where everything was at peace.
Right.
And so it's up to us. Why not be at peace? Why not go enjoy the horse and say, this is what's bringing me at peace? Because then when you're out in the world, you start out as a person who's bringing peace to wherever you go.
And look at Buddha, right? So Buddha opened up his window. He had been like he didn't look at the news. He didn't care about what was happening in, current affairs or anything like that.
Right.
And then one day he decides he's going to look out the window and he sees like this old man aging and dying
Yeah.
and then what? He's just like, "Oh my God, what is happening? The sky is falling." And
Yeah.
he runs and he sits under a tree to meditate and gets it and realizes and wakes up in that moment, wakes up. So
Yep.
I don't think it's a good thing for us to turn away when there's something really bad going on. I mean, I'm not saying that we deny it, that it's not real, that it's not happening. But like you said earlier, to gain that altitude, to rise higher above it, to see that, okay, it's only a movie. It's like the
Yeah.
Wizard of
And
Oz, isn't it? It's like Dorothy waking up at the end of the movie and
it
she
is, and
realizes.
it's also, in addition, it's also an acknowledgement that there are times when, as deans of the seminary, there are times when we had to bring our students together to address certain upsets so we can help them find peace. Do you remember we had our first year of students when the Pulse killings took place in Orlando, and one of the students said, what are we going to do? How are you? And we brought them all together and we had an immediate, like in a matter of hours, we put together a prayer service. We sang songs, we lit candles, because it wasn't that, oh, that didn't happen, that's an illusion. No, we're all in our upset in this moment. And how can we bring our love, our compassion, our kindness to each other to carry each other through it, instead of just being angry and adding to the what may be the anger, the vibe of the anger, and perhaps some idea of retaliation,
Yeah.
as opposed to let's come together. We held hands, we cried on each other's shoulders, we said their names, we honored the moment. Just like, I love to tell this story, and I know you've heard me say it 1,000 times, that they say that the shortest line in Christian scripture is Jesus wept, right? And it's not because he didn't believe that this world is an illusion. It's because he had compassion for his friends who were crying and who were upset about their brother's death. He had compassion. We bring compassion when there is an upset. We may feel it as well, but
Yeah.
we become a part of the healing as opposed to whatever might make it worse.
Yeah. And, Swami Jyotirmayananda, who is my guru, he's the only living disciple of Shivananda, by the way. And
Yeah.
he would often say, turn adversity or see, or even just be aware of adversity as austerity, so that these bad things that happen, the good, the bad, and the ugly in our lives, that's going to happen in matter, right? In Maya, cosmic illusion. It stings, but it also gives joy. I mean, there's a lot of joy, right? When you get together with friends and you're having a good time, or you're hot, you go swimming, and oh, it's like, oh, I love this. Don't get too attached because it's fleeting, it's going to pass. And so, this notion of bad things, when bad things happen, karma also exists in cosmic illusion.
Right. Yes.
Law of karma exists, and then there's collective karma. I mean, all of this plays a role. But the bottom line is that going back and remembering, waking up like Dorothy, it was a dream. It's okay. And what lesson can I learn from this? This is a blessing, not a curse, kind of thing.
Yes. Yes. Because if we get into, let's say, a retaliation mindset or victim mindset, then we could hey, let's all get the guns and we'll all go out there and start just shooting each other, as opposed to let's all comfort each other. And there's some joy in that. There's some joy in knowing that we have a community, even if it's the salvation of the world depends on you, even if it's just the world being the people in your life right in front of you.
Right.
That's who the world is. It's whoever you are with in the moment. And if you can bring comfort and care in that moment and receive comfort and care, that's the blessing. That's what we have each other for.
Yeah. So little different, not different necessarily, but moving from, so we talked about illusion, cosmic illusion, and then we moved into the true self, the true nature of the self. And now there's a cornerstone in A Course in Miracles, which is forgiveness,
Yeah.
often described as the path to inner peace. How does this compare with, and we'll, talk about the compare and contrast of Course in Miracles and Vedanta as it relates to forgiveness, emphasis on detachment, surrender, and non-dual awareness.
Yeah, it's like if you have a toolbox. Okay, we have this is my tool box, and inside the toolbox, I pull out the most consistent, recurring tool to apply to anything that's going on, and that's going to be forgiveness. Why? Well, because anything that is not forgiveness is masking my path to peace. If I'm upset with you and I just want to talk about what you did and why you're wrong and why I can't forgive you, I'm not at peace. I'm not finding peace. And it's not that the things that occur in the world are all okay. I'm not saying that abuse is okay, that anything that is harmful to the human body or spirit or mental well-being is okay. If you're in an abusive relationship, we're just being condemned or hurt in some way. It's not that you can't protect yourself or set boundaries, but it's still up to you to forgive, to look at what it is within you that needs to find peace as a result of what occurs. And you referred to quantum physics earlier. And I used to say, Jesus, who's the voice of A Course in Miracles, I used to say he was the original quantum physicist because he presented this tool. Forgiveness is a tool that changes us at depth. It's like the magic eraser. If you have grandchildren who come over and they draw on the wall with crayon, you take this magic eraser and you start cleaning the crayon off the wall. It's magic. It's amazing. Have you ever
It's
used one of those
magic.
magic erasers? Well, after a while, it deteriorates. You have to get a new one. And it's the same thing with the idea of forgiveness. It's like, I want to forgive, but I'm in my upset. So at least I can be willing. I have this concept. I have this tool. I have this magic eraser. I can choose to use it when I'm ready to acknowledge that that's going to be my way to peace. Not that I can say that the behavior that may be harmful. I'm not saying that harmful behavior is okay, because some people say, oh, am I supposed to forgive this person who harmed me? Well, think of it as forgiving yourself peace, not forgiving the behavior. Forgiveness is forgiving you peace. It's your path to peace. And so we concentrate on the idea of finding peace, and that forgiveness is a tool that takes us there. So when I talk about quantum forgiveness, it's about going to this place that's beyond our even concept or understanding. How can I forgive this? By going to this place where I'm recognizing that it's not even real. It's beyond the earthly experience. Yes, it hurts, but it's beyond that because it's part of my soul's alchemy.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. And so it's really what's really cool about this is that this concept of forgiveness in the Vedanta philosophy is like tying in all of the various questions that we had. So first of all, Vedanta, there's a couple of different kinds of Vedanta. I'm not going to get into it right now because it's going to be very confusing to people. But Advaita, 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 it means non-dual, non-dual, not
Right.
two, one without the second. So there's no you and I, there's no me and you, there's no this and that, there's no all of these identities and all of that stuff. No, it doesn't exist because all beings are manifestations of the same ultimate reality. Atman, Brahman, same ingredients, right? So forgiveness arises naturally when we realize that there is no wrongdoer. You didn't do anything to me because you are not separate from me. That's a non dualistic
Yeah.
mindset. Very difficult, again, oh my wondrous Maya, right? Swami Vivekananda, who is also a disciple of Shivananda, who has passed on, he's the guru brother Vivekananda of Swamiji. And again, people say, so what? Who cares? That's still in matter. That's still in Maya. So it doesn't matter. It's true, but I do like to give props where they belong. So Swami Vivekananda said, if you see God in every human being and in every sentient being, whom will you hate? Whom will you harm? Because they are you, right?
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
also part of letting go. Forgiveness is also part of letting go of the ego, right? So when we have hurt and insult and betrayal, it's really the ego. It's not the true self.
This is completely in line with the Course of Miracles teachings, and it says it over and over again. And again, you and I can go a little deeper if we want to on a part two, because we also hear in a Course of Miracles time and time again, your condemnation of your brother is your condemnation of yourself, because we entered into some sort of an agreement. We don't understand that many times, but the non-dualistic nature of the mystic paths always bring us back to that understanding that I am you, you are me. I am you, you are me. And I look at you, I have to see myself in your reflection and vice versa.
Right.
And so when we get into uh, the judgment and the condemnation, it's it's projecting outside, and it's our work is to bring it back, inside, and to look within, and to see what's happening in me as opposed as a result of what has occurred between us. There's a beautiful prayer in A Course in Miracles that says that I bring you to the Holy Spirit with me, because I cannot go alone if I'm going to condemn you. I have to bring you with me. I have to bring you with me, because no one can rise higher alone. If I say, oh, I'm better than you and I'm going to rise higher without you, I'm still in that victim mentality. And I'm
Exactly.
also in a mentality of judging you separate from me. And
Right.
so, yeah, Course in Miracles is also a non-dualistic teaching. We might have to do a whole thing on non-dualism.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a deep dig
It
right there.
is. It is. I remember in seminary we had an elective, and it was based. Randy did a beautiful presentation, and then a beautiful sort of healing with us as Sufi in the Sufi
Sufism.
tradition.
Yeah.
And so he presented to us the prodigal son and the Rembrandt picture. And in the
Yeah.
Rembrandt
Beautiful.
Rembrandt picture, you've got the prodigal son who returns, and he's kneeling down, and the father is lovingly just holding him, while the brother is kind
Yeah.
of
He's mad. Yeah.
the gangster
Yeah.
lean he's got,
Right.
and he's looking at
Yes.
he's
Yeah.
like,
Why
no,
do you,
not
yeah.
not okay, not cool. I've been here busting my butt, and you're over here, now all of a sudden you come running back and you're getting the big party. Not fair. Not fair. Dualism. That's dualistic notion, right?
Right.
Um, non-dualistic is to see he is you. The little brother is the older brother. The older brother is the little brother. The father is the little brother. The father is the older brother. Like all three of those characters are one. And I'm grateful, Dean Laurie, because I know that I've shared before many, many times. I've shared publicly, privately, in workshops, forgiveness of a particular member of my family, who had really, I felt, harmed us, harmed those in the family that we love, and as a result, really put a wedge in the family. Every single ritual, every single time, and I'm thinking of Randy when he did the healing, and I called this relative up in my mind and asked God to help melt my heart on this, because I was really the Grinch with it. You know, there's that scene in the Grinch at the end where his heart starts melting, you know.
Yeah.
And so like, I don't know, I gave it to God. I asked God to heal me of it. And eventually, one day, without any like big burning bush, it just happened. It melted, and that individual was here last weekend,
Mm.
came with the family, and it was a reconciliation, and it was so beautiful. And I almost can't recall what. I mean, I can recall. I don't want to. I don't want to wake the ego up.
Yeah.
I want to wake up to the non-dualistic notion of this person is me. I am this person. And the reason that it never sat well with me when I Corleoned him, right? Because I did. I Michael Corleoned him.
Yeah.
But that's the opposite of what I believe. That's the opposite of the Vedantic philosophy. That's the opposite of the cornerstone in A Course in Miracles, which is forgiveness.
Yeah, and there's so many, thank you for that story, because there's so many forgiveness stories, and we could probably spend another hour just bringing to mind forgiveness stories in our own lives, and also stories we've heard that we think, how could that possibly have happened? And the the greatest forgiveness stories I've ever heard always are wrapped up by the person saying that they themselves did not want to get stuck in the hardening of their hearts
Right.
that would have occurred and would have stayed with them if they did not work that melting, that image that you have. It's like, in the Latin tradition, sometimes they say if you're really upset with somebody, you should put their picture in the freezer, and then you freeze them. It's kind of like you're freezing them out of your life. But I like to take it further and say, well, you're freezing your upset. Let's just freeze the upset and then melt our hearts. Take it out of the freezer, let it melt, put it away, be done with it. You don't have to be in that person's life if you don't want to. But it's really about our own hearts. We don't want to have frozen hearts. We don't want to have hardened hearts. So we come into this idea of forgiveness as realizing that we're all sitting at different chairs at the table, and at some point we're going to get up and we're going to sit at another spot. And that spot we may have condemned at one time,
Right.
but now here we are. And then we're just going to keep rotating until we have our full soulful experience, whether it's in this lifetime or another, or as you said earlier, cleaning up karma from another lifetime.
That's right.
It's no coincidence that that person is in your life. That person was in your life for a reason, and that experience happened. And look how far you've come from
I
that.
I
And
know.
those people who don't have spiritual practice, you could still be telling the story of the bad guy. And you want to acquire people who agree with you that he's a terrible person. And if we do that, then we're stuck. We're stuck in our egos. We're stuck in our anger. And we all know people like that. I know people in my life that they always have an upset story to tell me.
Yeah.
And I think, well, do I do that? It makes me look at myself,
Mhm.
and I don't want to. I don't want to. Sometimes I find myself falling in that direction. It's like, oh, let me reel it back. I'm responsible for myself. I'm responsible for how I interpret what I see, how I interact with people, the energy that I bring into anything. And I am responsible for choosing forgiveness
Yes.
and to have the willingness to move in that direction. And wow, it's such a great conversation. Do you want to continue with the questions, or do you think this might be a good place to wrap it up?
I think it's a good place to wrap it.
Okay.
Put a
But
bow on it and we could continue, with our next conversation.
yeah,
We can continue this particular topic or any other. I mean,
endless questions and
it's great.
answers.
It's fun.
Yeah, it
I
is.
love playing with you.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And I hope that the whatever string we leave hanging, we'll pick it up and keep going sometime soon with another sacred conversation.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Namaste.
Namaste.